So you guys are full of shit when you say that, oh, it's the definition. This is just the proper use of the English word. Okay, hold up. Let me chill real quick before I get this started. A point I'm going to prove in this video is that vegans are not using the word Holocaust for the dictionary definition as they claim they are. Rather, their more sinister intention seeks to utilize the energy from the pain and impact rooted in the word Holocaust that stems from the lost lives of the Jewish genocide. Moreover, they use the dictionary as a scapegoat to justify harvesting the sentiment of a human atrocity, all in the effort to promote animal welfare. Secondly, I will observe the infighting within the vegan community, where I believe traditional cancel culture will cancel the cancel culture called veganism. I predict that the already dying vegan movement will implode, divide, and seek reform due to the nature of the dangerous hateful speech within the language being used as so-called activism by radical vegans. Lastly, it is my opinion that particular vegans of Jewish descent are being used for their social, racial, and ethnic immunity of scrutiny in order to shield the vegan movement from criticism, but only serve to validate as pseudo spokespersons for the entire Jewish community and enable the continued harvesting of energy from the word Holocaust, which many view as anti-Semitic.
But the word Holocaust, as emotion-provoking a word as it may be, that word has definitions. And let's look at these definitions. The most commonly used definition being, of course, destruction or slaughter on a mass scale, especially caused by fire or nuclear war. Slaughter on a mass scale. Sounds familiar.
The vegan use of language creates a delusional reality where only vegans reside, lost in confusion as to why others do not comprehend them when they speak. Allowing their alternate use of language to remain unchecked runs the risk of cultivating radical hate groups and dangerous behaviors. Such terms include but are not limited to the following: Holocaust, rape, murder, slavery. But remember, vegans are not using the word Holocaust for the value of its dictionary definition, but instead they are using the word Holocaust for the value of the impact that the word has in our culture, which that impact is derived from humans suffering a genocide.
The word has multiple definitions. So factually speaking, no matter how you may feel about it, factually speaking, murdering 74 billion land animals is, by definition, a Holocaust.
We are going to look at the definition of
murdering.
Murder. Okay. Now look what we have here, because you want to be factual, and we're not going to be in our feelings, okay? The unlawful, premeditated killing of one human being by another. As a noun, as a verb. Kill someone unlawfully and with premeditation. I don't see anything about animals in the definition of murder. How can you in one conversation say that you want to use factual terms and not be in our feelings, but then in the next conversation use terms based off of your feelings
about it,
rather than being factual? So clearly you're not truly interested in using the dictionary definitions for your message. Like I said, it's not the definition of Holocaust that they care about. It's the power that it holds, which is built off the backs of human atrocity. With these vegans, definitions in the dictionary are like anecdotes. They only matter when they support veganism. Mistake number 1. Let's look at your next mistake.
Now, if you are a person who takes offense at the usage of the word Holocaust when we are describing what farm animals go through, let's put that through a little consistency test. When we accurately describe what farm animals go through, does using the word slavery in that context take away something from the human victims of slavery?
Yes, it does. Slave, a person. It says it right there. They're not talking about animals. If you're going to use the word slave, you need to be talking about a person. That's the definition.
Yeah. What about the word rape?
Yes, it does. Rape, right there. It says person. Again, right? We're using the definition in the dictionary. It says a person.
Or when we talk about the sexual exploitation of chickens in the egg industry, they're being exploited for their reproductive systems.
Notice how he said
When we
accurately
describe
I didn't understand this at first, but it dawned on me. Vegans define words by the description of the behavior rather than the definition of the word. Isn't that a wonderful world to live in? When you force a child to take his clothes off without his consent, do you know what that's called? It's called a diaper change. Trust me, I have 3 kids. It's not always an easy process. Well, I have a consistency test for you too. It's called call the cops. If you truly believe that this is murder and rape, call the cops. Call them. Let them know that I'm eating a chicken sandwich right now. If you want to live in an alternate universe, you can use these alternate facts by vegans who are wordsmiths, bullshit artists, backwards thinkers, and spin doctors. If you define behaviors based off of simply describing them in order to determine the intent of a person, you're going to start classifying everything as evil.
We use many terms to describe what happens to animals in the animal ag industry. A term that we use on our channel actually quite frequently is murder. To slay wantonly. Wantonly just means intentionally. So to intentionally kill. Murder can be defined as intentional killing.
Yeah.
And I think when you slit a cow's throat to eat his ass meat, that would be intentional.
Okay, first off, it's her ass meat, since you're talking about a cow. That is not how murder can be defined. Murder is not defined by intentionally killing. Okay, you guys are completely wrong about this, but before I get to that, we gotta talk about this ass meat, yo. Like, is this supposed to gross me out? Cause, I'm gonna take the advice from my man, Young Thug, okay? Like, you just made up your own word right in front of our eyes. Look, let me show you something real quick. If you actually took the time to scroll down, you would see something. Of course, they skipped the first option because that one didn't fit their definition they wanted. So let's go to number 2, and it says to slay wantonly. So let's look. It's saying slay specifically. There's a reason why it's there. Now let's look up the word slay. Now, let's look down where you wanted to ignore. No, I'm sorry. I'm not a linguist. I graduated college with a 3.1 GPA. So somebody double check my work for me. But what I see here is it says slay under the English historic use, and an Old Norse it says like slaughter, as in butcher's meat, and now the Middle English is slaughter. So now let's look up the word slay. It says kill a person or animal in a violent way. Oh my gosh, you're right. It says animal. Oh wait, never mind. Look, it says archaic literary. If you look at the part where it says North American, under the context of slay, it says to murder someone, which we already know what the definition of murder is. We've already gone over that. I think if we continue down this path, we're going to end up on Beyonce's album with these definitions. But let's make up our own sentence now. I'm slaying you right now, and you're slaying me. You really do. Now, a translation to that is, I'm destroying you right now, and you're making me laugh. But maybe embarrassingly. However, whatever. It doesn't really matter. We all have our moments. Like, I've lost fights. I've gotten my ass beat before. It's humiliating, but all you can do is pick up the pieces, re-strategize, think about what you can learn from it, and move on, really. That's about it. But what I don't want to see happen is you continue to use these terms and then also talk about how I'm so open-minded as a vegan. I'm an intellectual philosopher, because for some reason every vegan is a philosopher right now.
And what's strange is that the phrase on the paper that everyone was holding said end the animal Holocaust. Animal Holocaust.
Yeah.
It was specific, had an adjective in front of the word.
Okay, dude, I'm gonna have to just stop you right there. Like, we really gotta go there. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but the word animal is not an adjective. Like, I'm just sorry. It's just not an adjective, okay? I know maybe vegans think that I'm some asshole or something, but I'm a really nice person in real life, so I'm not even really gonna get on you like that. but I'm just letting you know that, animal is not an adjective. So, okay, I'm going to just try to summarize the rest of this, because basically what happens is they dig their heels deeper.
Guys, words have meaning, and frankly,
into using the terms they're using, despite acknowledging and understanding that the other side of veganism doesn't support it.
it's shocking to see fellow vegans asking James and us and others to change our language.
But what I also notice is they keep referencing their other vegan friends.
Like Joey Carbstrong says,
I care about chickens more than your emotions. More than you being offended. That's 100% certain.
And like Danny from Lifting Vegan Logic said,
if I shaped my activism around not wanting to offend anybody, I wouldn't be an activist.
let's not know our friend Stephanie, by the way. This issue is the most important issue for her.
And I think this is fascinating, because what I see happening here is they have their language, and their language created their worldview. When they share that language with others, it helps comfort them with an interpersonal reality that they share amongst themselves in like a bubble. And so she goes on to say that she wants you to delete yourself from her channels.
If you can't handle that, you shouldn't be on social media. In fact, get off this channel right now.
That she can surround herself around the strong advocates, or basically the people who agree with her.
We want to surround ourselves with strong, passionate people who speak up for the animals with conviction.
And they don't realize that they are separating themselves. And I wonder if I still have the clip, but there was vegans who talked about building walls around themselves. And I believe it was the vegan lawyer.
Behavior, the quicker we can spot it, the quicker we can know who to avoid and who to not hold too much trust or self-esteem in to do the right things by the animals, because they really just don't give a shit at the end of the day. That's it. I did a live stream today, so I didn't think I would be making another video, but I think this was absolutely a necessary one to make, to draw attention to, and to just keep the frauds out of this movement. That's just, maybe we should build a nice fort, build a wall like Trump. Not really, but keep the fakery out. Can we just keep the fakery over there? Ethical people will be here.
I predicted this. I knew I'm not the only one. I know other people have the same, some similar thoughts too. But to myself, I said, I see what's happening, and vegans are going to isolate themselves from vegans, and there's going to be almost witch hunts of who's really vegan, who's not really vegan.
and veganism will always be about the animals, and it will never be about you.
In fact, we would argue that it's actually worse than a Holocaust because it's perpetual. Yeah. People are gonna, oh, I'm so triggered.
Good. Triggered. Now, mostly we bring up Alex Hershaft because he is a literal Holocaust survivor. So, Lifting Vegan Logic and Isaac, ask yourself, just like Alex Hershaft, are Jewish themselves?
And to call what animals go through a Holocaust isn't to morally equate it to the Holocaust. This isn't a competition. This is using the English language properly.
So if you've been watching my channel for a bit, you know that I use the term Holocaust all the time. If I shaped my activism around not wanting to offend anybody, I wouldn't be an activist. My activism is fundamentally offensive.
I need to eat, but I don't eat Holocaust.
Okay, so I found this comment to be interesting on this video. I didn't go through all the comments, but the guy says, it's like he's hearing it, but not really feeling it. Shame. Maybe he will try and change at some point. That's exactly what I'm saying, is that you guys have a language that people can't comprehend. We don't know what you're talking about because we don't hold the same fundamental foundations of your belief systems and your values.
All right, so now let's cover this whole definitions controversy. Obviously, the word Holocaust has multiple definitions, and one of them clearly applies to what animals are going through. Let's look at the definition of anti-Semitic. The definition reads, hostile to or prejudice against Jews. How does referring to what animals go through as a Holocaust take away from the victims of the World War II Holocaust, but doing the same thing for other groups of humans who were victims of mass killings way before the Holocaust of World War II?
Is this anti-Semitic? I don't know. I truly don't. But I can tell you that it's going to insult a certain group of people because colloquially speaking, when in our culture you say the Holocaust or a Holocaust, the first thing anybody thinks about is the Jewish genocide. Now, the word Holocaust is being used as a synonym to describe the Jewish genocide. So I think it would be more important to look at the word genocide than the word Holocaust, because an animal holocaust is not a genocide. And as I said before, I don't believe you guys are using this term for the definition as much as you are using it for the trigger factor because of what people have gone through with it, the way people relate to it, and the way people relate to it is founded upon the blood spilled of the Jewish people.
What is the moral difference here? I can't think of anything besides difference in species, which at the root would be speciesism.
So let's look at this. This will answer your question. Look, the definition of genocide. Very important. The deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. A campaign of genocide. Now, look at this down here. The origin, Greek and Latin roots are extremely important in the English language. Now, the Greek root of geno is race. You guys aren't talking about racism. You guys are talking about a term you made up called speciesism. Speciesism does not fall under a relationship to genocide. So you guys have no business making a reference of speciesism regarding genocide, because genocide doesn't include species. It says race, specifically race. And that answers your question for why you can use the term Holocaust for several individuals within several groups of human beings, but not for animals. So that answers your question for why people have a problem with individuals using the term Holocaust in reference to the Jewish genocide for animals, and why they don't have a problem with using the term Holocaust as a reference of the Jewish genocide in terms of other groups of human beings, because the word genocide is surrounded around the topic of people and race, not animals and speciesism. So I can see why people disagree with it. And the thing is you don't have to agree with me, because I really don't care. It's your fellow vegan who cares. If you destroy your own movement, that's on you, buddy.
Animals go through a Holocaust isn't to morally equate it to the Holocaust. It's to call what animals go through the correct thing, which is a Holocaust.
And I ended up comparing animal agriculture to the Holocaust, which some people didn't like.
And although you guys want to say that there are other genocides that are using the term Holocaust, the specific genocide that you guys relate to as a group, as veganism, as vegans, is the Jewish Holocaust. You guys make references of the swastika. You guys make references of the branding. You guys make references of the gas chambers. Perhaps these may happen in other Holocausts, but up until now, no one's heard of an animal Holocaust. Even in the film Earthlings, they use Nazis as an example for veganism. Okay, so I'm going to use this word the way you're using it.
Now, the word Holocaust means slaughter or destruction on a mass scale, especially caused by fire or nuclear war, but slaughter or destruction on a mass scale it's actually the first definition, describes exactly what animals are going through. And everyone knows Holocausts are bad.
And I'm going to pick the pieces of it that are going to fit for me. Destruction on a mass scale, especially caused by fire. So this weekend, I'm going to have a Holocaust party. Me and my friends, we're going to burn a whole bunch of trash and just throw a Holocaust. I'm going to go and destroy a bunch of trees in my backyard with fire. So I'm going to Holocaust the trees. I feel like that's an appropriate definition. Who wants to come to my Holocaust party? How do you think that's going to make people feel if you throw a Holocaust party? Because you're having the destruction on a mass scale that's caused by fire. I also disagree with this statement or this assertion that people who won't accept the term Holocaust in reference to the Jewish Holocaust, or the Jewish genocide, which you guys can pretend you're not trying to refer to that if you want to. So if you're saying that that is a sign of speciesism, I disagree, because it is also vegans who disagree with the term Holocaust. So if that's the case and it's speciesism, then that means there's also speciesist vegans.
I've been vegan since birth, and I teach people about veganism. There's essentially, I guess I'd call it like a pretty big split within the vegan community with how things are being done right now, and want to make the vegan movement more intersectional and supportive of human rights issues. Right now, what I see going on is that both sides are clinging tighter and doubling down to their approaches, especially when they feel attacked by the other side.
Part where you say, and to call what animals go through a Holocaust isn't to morally equate it to the Holocaust. When you and I both know the next step to this is name the trait, which in and of itself aims to equate in some fashion man and animal. And on top of that, there are literally vegans out there saying that they equate man to animal because of these ideas.
So the definition of a Holocaust is just a mass slaughter. So he claims that I'm uneducated. He also claimed that I was devaluing the lives of Jews by comparing them to animals. Now, let's think this through. I believe that all sentient life is equal, meaning a Jew is equal to that of an animal. And he thinks just because he's a human, it makes his suffering or any suffering of a Jew above the suffering of any animals, right? I don't know if you know this, Frankie, but Jews are not the only individuals who can suffer. Animals feel pain, they have feelings, they have emotions, they suffer as well.
And ultimately, if you believe that humans and animals ought to or should be treated equally in some fashion or another regarding their moral consideration, you must, in and of itself, morally equate the victims of the Jewish genocide to the animals of your animal Holocaust that you guys made up.
So white veganism, as I understand it, is essentially the form of mainstream veganism that ignores intersectionality and ignores solidarity with other justice causes. Also, when vegans behave in racist or sexist ways and claim that they are vegan and or use racist and sexist language and behaviors to try and convince other people to be vegan.
I stumbled upon this vegan terror tier list. Those who are near 10 are more likely to become future terrorists. And I'm noticing that there's a shift in this chart right around here. So if you know these channels, you know the different styles of so-called advocacy. Here on the left side, 10, you can find quotes on all these people talking about killing human beings. On the right side, I don't think I've seen any of these people talk about killing human beings. In fact, the people on the right side are actually the most valuable vegans that exist. However, the people on this left side don't acknowledge them as being true vegans. And in fact, they are considering them to be plant-based. And that's going to be for another video. Okay, first off, Vegceps, if you're watching this, you need to be careful because you're going to get yourself into some shit with this. Do me a favor and consider the way that you're speaking, because these things are going to come back up in the future. I guarantee you. These other guys, ask yourself, Danny, Hanyamania, Gary Yourofsky, you need to realize that these people are of Jewish heritage or descent. They have a past that you do not have. You need to get yourself out of this. I'm letting you know that right now.
As you'd imagine. So I started getting comments that I'm anti-Semitic, and that's basically just meaning that you're racist against Jews. If you go to my TikTok profile, you can see that it says equality. So that means I believe that all sentient life is equal. So she kept running in circles saying that I wasn't listening to Jewish voices or anything like that. I then left another comment saying, I'm against the Holocaust. Why aren't you against the Holocaust? Let's look at it from the perspective of the animals. Looking at it from the perspective of the animals, you're 1,000 times worse than a Nazi.
And you know what's sad about this? Is you can't even blame him for what he's saying. 17-year-old kid. Vegan. And you know what's happening? There are certain people out here who are supposed to be authority thought leaders in the group who are enabling this type of behavior, who are enabling these thoughts. And he's being influenced by these grown men. And the sad part is, and the ship goes down, they're going to have a pass, and he's not. And I'll show you an example of it right now.
It is sad that we can't talk to kids about the truth, about what's going on in the world, that we treat these teenagers like they're babies.
Isn't it over the top to use the Holocaust?
The animal Holocaust was happening long before the Jewish Holocaust, during the Jewish Holocaust, and it's still happening today. I find it over the top that the Jewish Holocaust is compared to the animal Holocaust. And this is where my anger emanates from when people don't want to listen to the message. This is why vegans get so militant, because I don't want to be a two-legged devil to the animals or to anybody.
And what is with the self-hatred in these groups? And it looks like it's coming from multiple sides. I don't understand this. When I made my intro and I was talking about possible dangerous actions happening, I didn't even get to this part. I didn't even think about this. But you know what? This is a young black kid who's about to get himself hemmed up because he's following after the wrong crowd. When I made my intro, I was thinking of people becoming radicalized and destroying property and blowing things up. They're enabling it to a point where people are feeling comfortable speaking like this because why not? What's wrong with it? All the other vegans are speaking like this.
He also wrote in the comments that I said animal agriculture was worse than slavery as well. Yep, I would rather work in a cotton field being controlled by whites, me personally, than have my rabbits, who I love to death, over to a butcher and say, cut them up into pieces and sell them to someone.
Oh, and again, you think he's crazy. You probably are looking at this young kid and you're saying, what in the hell happened to you? Here, I'm going to show you what happened to him. And I'm going to show you the types of influences there are in veganism, which are causing these, I don't know what to call it. Is it self-hatred?
In terms of moral wrongness, what was more bad, or what is more bad, between the modern animal agricultural industry and factory farming, or the historical slave trade of human beings?
Yes, in principle, the amount of suffering that we inflict on animals could mean that that speciesism as such, as an attitude and all the practices that flow from it, have actually done more harm, caused more suffering, and in that sense been worse than all of the terrible things that slavery did as well.
One of the reasons why I will never be vegan is because veganism undermines the sanctity of humanity and does not regard human life as being anything precious.
And veganism will always be about the animals, and it will never be about you.
If I shaped my activism around not wanting to offend anybody, I wouldn't be an activist. My activism is fundamentally offensive. It's fundamentally offensive. I really just don't understand how somebody being offended can act as a justification for me to not be allowed to use the English language properly.
Vegans are not using the word Holocaust for the dictionary definition as they claim they are. Rather, their more sinister intention seeks to utilize the energy from the pain and impact rooted in the word Holocaust that stems from the lost lives of the Jewish genocide. Moreover, they use the dictionary as a scapegoat to justify harvesting the sentiment of a human atrocity, all in the effort to promote animal welfare. The vegan use of language creates a delusional reality where only vegans reside, lost in confusion as to why others do not comprehend them when they speak.
Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here.